As promised, SABC News reporter Ayanda Mhlongo has been monitoring developments of this story throughout the day and now joins us live for an update. Ayanda, a very good afternoon to you. So heavy rain had ultimately halted the rescue efforts yesterday. How is the situation today and what is the latest at the site at this time? We know that Premier Tamintuli had earlier visited and he says he's still fearing there could still be more people who remain trapped underneath the rubble. They could even potentially be foreign nationals. Good afternoon.
Alicia, very good afternoon to you and good afternoon to our viewers. Yes, still a lot of work ahead, Alicia, for the rescue teams. They started this morning just around 8 o'clock. Of course, as you said, yesterday they had to suspend the recovery operation due to the inclement weather. It was raining heavily and deemed unsafe for the rescue teams, but they were back on site as early as 8 this morning. And then around 12 o'clock or so, they then retrieved the fifth body. Their work, though, as you said in your introduction, is still continuing. They still have a mammoth task ahead of them. In fact, one of the rescuers, when he was briefing the Premier, said that it is going to be quite a painstaking task that the rescuers will have to now undertake. And this is what they were telling us, Alicia, in terms of this operation. So the 5 bodies have now been recovered, and thereafter we're then going to be bringing in the canines, and these are canines that highly experienced in these operations, 2 of which in fact have come from the Western Cape, and these 2 canines were actually part of the recovery operation in that tragic incident in George, where, if one remembers, 34 people died in that particular tragedy there. And so those canines are part of this operation, and in fact we did see them as well. As soon as the first phase, which was to the recovery of the 5 bodies, they then brought in the canines. It's a bit of a difficult area which these rescuers are working under, Alicia. If you look at sort of the debris and what they're dealing with, it's large, very large concrete slabs. There's scaffolding as well, large steel bars, and so they have to maneuver that area very carefully. They've also, of course, from yesterday, in fact from Friday, brought in the graders, this heavy equipment, to assist to remove the large slabs of concrete. And so what they're doing now is that they're moving layer by layer. And remember, this incident, or most of the people were believed to have been on the 4th floor. And so now they seem to have cleared at least what was the 1st or the 4th level of the building. And then now they're going to be making their way down. You did also correctly say that, of course, the difficulty that they have is that they don't know how many people were on site when this incident happened, when this building collapsed. And so they need to ensure that they go through, will at least sift through the entire area. The government has said as well that they're uncertain. And so there is this commitment that these rescue teams are going to continue. In fact, they've estimated, Alicia, that they might continue over the next 2 weeks. So it's still going to be a few days, in fact, even weeks, for these rescuers as they painstakingly sort of go through each level of this now collapsed structure to try and see whether or not there may have been any other people that may have been trapped there. You know, also whilst there, Alicia, earlier on this morning, we had a family that came through, and they saying that their loved one works in the construction industry. They're not sure whether or not he works. He worked at that particular site, but that he disappeared on Friday, and they'd gone to the hospital. He wasn't amongst the 11 people that were rescued and taken to hospital on Friday. So you do still have families that are searching for their loved ones, presumably that might still be trapped underneath that building. So it's still going to be quite a number of days and a lot of work as well from the rescuers. But so far, Alicia, they've done incredible work. And of course, this has also been relayed by the Premier, who's commended their efforts dealing with the inclement weather. Yesterday, we were dealing with the rain that was on and off, became very heavy in the afternoon. Today, it was extremely humid and hot, yet these rescuers have continued their work. And so the next point, obviously, Alicia, is the investigation. And there's so many questions, as you're saying, that people have. When we were there for the first time today, or rather early on today, we also had a first-time opportunity to speak to the families of the victims. Some have been now identified. In fact, one is the founder of the temple, Mr. Vix Pandey, and we were able to speak to his sister, who recounted the last moments that she had with her brother. Family is utterly devastated by what has happened, but they are seeking answers, Alicia. They want to know what was the cause of this tragedy. And of course, it's now will be left to the Council for the Built Environment. They're going to be leading this investigation. We also did pick up, Alicia, that samples had already been taken yesterday by the investigation team of the concrete and some of the soil there. So those will then go off for testing, as of course, while the priority is to ensure that they've recovered everyone who might still be trapped in the building in that rubble. But on the other side, you do have then this investigation that is now underway. And the Premier also saying that he does want answers. The Minister also yesterday, when he visited, you'd remember that he also spoke about issues around accountability, and that they would have to ensure that if there's anyone that needs to be held accountable for what has happened, that that necessary action then will then be taken. But of course, that will be determined by the outcome of this investigation. We're not sure as yet, Alicia, as to when that investigation will be concluded, whether or not there'll be some sort of a preliminary report. That we'll just have to wait and see over the coming days what information we get from the government. But certainly on site, the rescue teams are going to remain there as long as they can until they've cleared that entire site. Alicia?
Very comprehensive update. Ayanda Mhlongo, SABC News reporter, live to us from the scene of the collapsed temple out in Verulam in Durban, where we understand, of course, those rescue efforts are continuing since, of course, they were halted by rain late yesterday.